It's the Fan Drive Time, Sportsnet 590 The Fan, Ben Ennis, Stephen Brunt. It's a pejorative to be weather vane in sports, right? Like you don't want to be.
Yes, I'd say that's correct.
I find myself feeling that way about the Raptors. Like I've gone all over the place with what this team is in the early going, and you know what? That's maybe the natural ebbs and flows of a team that has an average age of 25 and are integrating a 20-year-old fourth overall selection and somebody coming back from injury in the middle of the season. But game one, awful. They'll never win a game. They're going to be one of the worst offensive teams of all time. Going to Boston, smack the Celtics upside the head. Hey, you know what? Pretty darn good.
Scotty Barnes, Rookie of the Year.
Rookie of the Year, 5-game winning streak, and they're 6-3. Yeah, all right. Lose 5 of their next 6 and are one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. And I'm left scratching my head a little bit. So let's help figure it out.
Amy will level this off, right? She'll give us some perspective, right? To a little distance here, kind of. Yeah, we've got the high, we got the low. Bring us right down the middle, Amy.
Yeah, no pressure, right? Just come in here and tell us everything. I mean, it's not funny, but in preseason, this is what Nick Nurse, this is what Freddie, this is what all the people that are actually in the locker room, in the practices said is this is going to be an up and down year for us. And now that we're kind of in that down, everyone's losing their minds. I would still say that at the end of the day, they're still competing hard. When you look at the Portland game, they fought back from 10 multiple times at the end of that game. And I think that was one of the bright spots. It's not going to be perfect. Again, the way that this team wants to play defense is pretty exhausting. Mm-hmm. And so, and on top of that, when you want to add new pieces or Pascal getting back, OG coming out, there is a chemistry that goes into the defensive end. So I don't think it's always going to look the prettiest, but I do understand the bigger picture and that you could potentially start a smaller forward center, but that means you have a 6'8" guard. So, I mean, it's going to take some time. And unfortunately right now, right, this is a tough road trip. It's interesting. We were just saying on the plane, it almost seems like a grueling road trip out west, and we don't even go to LA. I mean, when's the last time you've heard that, right? We don't even go to, I can still say, the Staples Center for another month or two. But so it's just, I think it's going to be a complete grind. And I mean, things don't get any easier tonight. That's for sure. Not only because of who the Raptors are going up against, but obviously the news this morning with OG and his hip pointer injury. So that's a bit of a blow to the lineup. That being said, it means, Pascal's got to step up and do a little bit more. It means Chris Boucher is going to have to come back and probably work some things for these guys to have a chance here.
Yeah, talking to Amy Audibert, Sportsnet Raptors analyst. So let's start with the OG thing, which actually sounds pretty bad. I mean, the way Nick Nurse was describing it, he'll be out a while. That sounds like, I don't know, weeks, Amy.
Yeah, like not good. I would say I think everyone kind of just, you see some eyes popping when that came out this morning. I mean, he's still with the team, but from what we understand, it is a hip pointer injury, and they can be pretty painful and delicate. So, yeah, I mean, I think everyone's still going, oh no, especially because, again, getting Pascal back and trying to integrate him, and OG's such a big key piece on both ends of the court for the Raptors. So when we hear it's going to be a while, yeah, I mean, I think anything for the next a week would seem like a while for the Raptors without OG. But again, we're just not sure the extent of the injury.
And he picked that up. That was in practice, right?
That's what we're told. Yeah, we're told it's in practice. The team stayed in Portland for a couple days before they came out to Utah. So they had a couple practices.
So Pascal Siakam has looked better, or he's had some positive games. The team's 0-4 in the games that he's played. Now they have won a game since he returned, but it was the one that he missed for load management. I like correlation, not causation, all that. I get it, but like 0-4, is that becoming a thing? Like if not actual, if there's no reason for it, that like psychologically that the guy has not been on the court for a win yet.
Yeah, that's tough, but I mean, he's a very, very good basketball player. Like, I think it's way too early. You're hearing a lot of this conversation already, right? About like, is Pascal taking away now from Scotty? And that's not the case. When you look at the shot chart, like they all take the same amount of shots. Again, I think, well, a couple things. When we talk about the style of play that the Raptors want to play with, you have to work yourself back into that shape. So given the fact that Pascal's returning from 6 months off, yeah, you're right. I think he's looked pretty good out there. I think that the Raptors' struggles are bigger picture. It's not because Pascal's back. Of course, when you're reintroducing such a focal point to what you want to do and an all-star and your max guy, of course there's going to be a little bit of adjustment. But again, I think that they've played some really good teams. I think that the NBA is, you're not getting any automatic wins anymore. We saw that against Detroit. Unfortunately, that wasn't their best effort. But I don't think it's fair to say 4 games into Pascal's return that that's the reason.
Fred VanVleet's playing a ton of minutes. OG was playing a ton of minutes till he got hurt. That's a small number of guys are carrying this team night after night. Amy, what are Nick Nurse's options? While still trying to win these games on what is a tough road trip, but to try and spread that workload around a little bit to try and so they don't run, like Fred, for instance, run him into the ground.
Yeah, and you feel almost a little bit bad for him again going into tonight. You have to imagine that Fred's going to have to play quite a few minutes if they're going to compete and win this game. But getting Chris back, again, not at the position, but getting a body back there. Precious, as much as everyone likes to talk about his field goal percentage, I do think he's very important in this team. He rebounds the ball, he pushes, he just brings some kind of energy. So having him back is going to be huge. And then we're expecting to see Yuta Watanabe out there. I'm optimistic that it could be within the next couple games. We spoke to him today, and he seems like he's getting ready. Obviously, they're not throwing anybody out there early. But I think what Utah showed in the summer and even in the preseason, right? He brings what the Raptors look like they need it sometimes. It's just like a big shot or a big moment or just a hustle play. Delano, right? He wasn't the greatest in Portland. Again, this is a 46 young guy that is going to have ups and downs. And I also wouldn't be super surprised, not that I've been told this or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Isaac come back up from the 905 just with the shortage of bodies. And Nick Nurse had spoke about him even in the last couple of weeks that he's actually good enough to make the rotation, but just finding minutes. And then, of course, the other one I would say, I'm going through the whole list here, but is Malachi Flynn. Malachi's been good in the minutes he's played. Mm-hmm. So it's just, unfortunately what happened in Portland is where you get in his minutes problems when they do get some guys in there and all of a sudden Portland goes on a 10-0 run. So that second unit knows that they have to be better. They have to at least sustain when they get opportunities out there.
So, Amy, you mentioned that defensively, the way they play, it's taxing. It's difficult to play. They have not been the thing that I thought you could count on. Well, you could count on them to give max effort every night or close to it, more than some of their opponents. But I thought defense would be the thing that you could count on as well because they have so many switchable guys. They have so many guys with great defensive pedigrees. You lose a lot of that, I guess, with OG out. But with OG in, they've been a bottom 10 defensive team in the NBA all season long across like basically every statistical category. What do you account for that? And are you of the belief that could be turned around quickly?
Well, I'm in the hope that it can be. I would say this. I think in the way that the game is played nowadays, and especially the way that the Raptors want to play, we can't really necessarily just judge them separately anymore. Offense is very much relying on your defense as much as defense often will rely on your offense, your shot selection, getting buckets, getting close range buckets, not giving up second chance opportunities, right? Because that all puts you in a bit in the scramble in transition. And I think that's part of it. So I just, again, like they just got to keep swarming and hustling. And because when you're undersized, what happens is sometimes when you have to send that double or you dig or you stunt stay, but you don't actually stay, that's a kick out three, right? And we've seen the Raptors get burned a couple times on that. It comes back to just rotating. I do like the ball pressure. I think the ball pressure has actually been pretty nice. Gary Trent still leading up there, deflections per game. So things like that are important. At the end of the day, with the defense and the offense, it just goes back to health. I mean, that's where the NBA is, right? And unfortunately for the Raptors, they've hit some early health problems.
Yeah, they have, and it doesn't get easier tonight in Utah against a pretty good Jazz team. Game on Sportsnet, by the way, 9 o'clock on Sportsnet 1. Amy, thanks for doing this.
Oh, appreciate it. Listen, I hope you guys enjoy a great, tight game tonight. Let's look at that one.
Yeah. Here's hoping. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
See ya. There's Amy Audibert, Sportsnet Raptors analyst. Maple Leafs in action tonight as well. The red-hot Toronto Maple Leafs playing the red-hot New York Rangers.
Yes, coming off their win over the sad sack Montreal Canadiens, yes.
Yes. Last time we saw the New York Rangers against the Toronto Maple Leafs, they were getting an outstanding goaltending performance and defeating the Toronto Maple Leafs. So let's see if there's a turnaround tonight. Let's talk to Frank Saravelli, president of hockey content at Daily Faceoff, who is online right now. How's it going, Frank?
I'm doing pretty well, guys. How are you?
I'm doing well. Jack Campbell has been the story of the season for this Leafs team. He's been unbelievable. I know you wrote a little bit about where he stands in regards to the American Olympic team. At this point, would you put him on it?
I would have him in the third spot. I think he's played so well to this point. I don't know that he has necessarily the game stealing capability that a Connor Hellebuck might have when he's on, or a John Gibson, but I think he's sort of in that next rung down in terms of American-born goaltenders, and he's done pretty much everything you could ask of him for the Toronto Maple Leafs this season.
If you're Kyle Dubas, do you let him get on the plane, or do you throw yourself in front of him before he boards?
I think you're sending some other guys, and I don't know. I think you let him go.
Do you think if the Leafs knew this was the guy they were getting in Jack Campbell, and I don't know if this is the guy that they're getting, the .945 save percentage guy. I don't know if necessarily he's going to win the Vezina, but he seems pretty much established as a number one goaltender on a pretty good team and healthy to this point, that maybe they would have treated the Peter Mrazek signing a little bit differently, or is it easy to play the results?
I mean, it's easy to look back now and say it, right? And there's still some time for, first off, we haven't really seen a fully healthy Mrazek, and we haven't really seen any drop-off in Campbell's game to the point where you'd even want to be playing a Mrazek if he was healthy at this point. So I think there were a lot of people, not just in Toronto, but around the league, that were saying, okay, what Jack Campbell did last year was fantastic, and I think that was one of the real instances where that all-or-nothing series was so important, was to get that peek behind the curtain and see how well-liked he is, see how much his teammates respect him, see how infectious his personality is around that group. And then now it was, can he go out and do it again? And the fact that he's exceeded where he was last year to this point this year, I think you need to be having that conversation about what does an extension look like, how much is it going to cost us, and should we lock this in right now? Because, it might get more expensive later to the point where you can't do it.
Yeah, that's it. Like you kind of, you feel like the dollar sign's kind of floating through the air every time he goes out there, right? It absolutely. Now, but in the short term as well, Frank, like what? It seems unclear when Mrazek, with the groin injury, understandably, unclear when he's going to come back, unclear, kind of how durable he's going to be this year, what they're going to be able to get out of him. The fall off, if it's not Campbell to Mrazek, it's Campbell to whoever else is going to be the backup goaltender, is precipitous here. Can they, can you, like, I guess the question is how hard and how long you ride Jack Campbell without being able to give him a break, because the drop off to the guys who would give him a break is going to hurt your team tremendously.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I don't have the answer to it, quite frankly, because let's face it, when push came to shove at times last year for Jack Campbell, there were health issues as well that kind of put this team in a tough spot for a while. And so I think that's a significant concern, is managing that workload and making sure that, I think it's important to get Joe Woll more opportunity. You saw the game that he came in, and there were some shaky moments, and he gets the win, and it ends up being a great story for someone that has really worked hard to get to this point and has been through a little bit of a journey to get there. And, you kind of know what you have in Michael Hutchinson. He's sort of that, he's the number three that, you break glass in case of emergency, has some NHL experience that you'd like to not go to. And I think it's a worthy question at this point as to how much, what do you have with Joe Woll? Can you turn to him in case you need him? And what does Peter Mrazek look like, when he's healthy, and can he sustain it? Because that's the one thing too, is, you look back in Peter Mrazek's history, he by and large has been pretty healthy. So if he gets past this, is he back, and is he able to remain there for the remainder of the season? And I think, those are all the questions you want to be asking at the moment.
Yeah, it's 1% of problems, though, right now, because the Leafs are on 23 points and just 2 points back of the Panthers for first in the Atlantic, and they've won 4 straight. But yeah,
wait a second. Before you move on, I will say this. I don't think enough people were asking the question about the goaltending for the Maple Leafs heading into the season, because for me, that was one of the biggest questions.
Yeah.
And that it's been answered to this point so far, as everyone else has reverted to form, is a huge, huge sign.
Well, yeah, for sure. And, it would be nice to know or have a better sense of Peter Mrazek, but we've seen him for 5 periods, and he's the guy that's under contract for more than $3 million for the next 3 years. But, yeah, it's a weird situation because I think listen, you don't want to make a judgment on whatever, 12 games or whatever, but it really feels like if I were Kyle Dubas, if I knew that Jack Campbell could shoulder the load or be the guy that he appeared to be emerging as the number one for this team a season ago, I might allocate some of those resources that I spent on Peter Mrazek, maybe in extending Jack Campbell and getting a cheaper backup who's more of a backup, because I guess the plan going into the season was for those guys to battle it out, maybe completely split games down the middle, and whoever got hot was going to get the majority of games.
Right, but if that had happened and you had allocated things differently, and Jack Campbell wasn't playing the way that he is to start, and he's at a .904 save percentage instead of a .940, we're sitting here going, why would they do that?
Yeah, that's
it. I don't know. You don't get to play it both ways.
Hey, Frank, I want to ask you about it's actually an NHL business story. We haven't talked a ton about it, but the pending sale of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Ron Burkle, Mario selling to the Fenway Group, John Henry, the guys who own the Red Sox and the Liverpool Football Club. It seems to me this is interesting on both sides of the equation. Like, obviously Mario and Burkle have got the arena built, been very successful there. Why are they getting out at this moment, and why do you think the Fenway Group is getting into hockey at this moment?
Well, I can't answer the Fenway part, but it's more than just a hockey play. I think, as it was framed to me from Fenway's involvement in the deal, they also see this as a bit of a land and development opportunity. As part of this package, you not just get the team and their practice facility and their arena, you also get all that land where the Igloo used to sit adjacent to the arena. And if you can build that out into a pretty big area downtown in Pittsburgh, a city that's actually continued to grow quite rapidly, especially on the tech front, that could be a really, worthwhile endeavor just on the land front alone. With regards to Ron Burkle and the Penguins, this is a fantastic opportunity for him. He comes in at a time of distress, and my understanding was his investment was $70 million, not insignificant. And in turn, he's going to end up with a value north of 6 or 7x of what he put in.
That's good.
We're talking a $400 million return that he's able to pull out from this franchise. So I'm told and had reported today that this Penguins working sale, it's always difficult to pinpoint these things because there's debt involved and usually in some other things that come with it, including the land part of it, as I mentioned. But I'm told that they're working on a valuation for the Penguins that starts with an 8, as in $800+ million. And so we saw the valuation from Sportico earlier this season, 845. You never know if those things are totally accurate. They had been pushing and trying to sell off a portion of this team for a while and couldn't really get over the hump of what the NHL was asking for in terms of an expansion franchise fee from Seattle that had really kind of put the brakes on it from a league perspective. Like, if you're going to be selling a marquee franchise in the league with some star power, with some Stanley Cup banners hanging in the rafters, with a team that isn't going anywhere anytime soon in a beautiful downtown arena, that it's going to need to be a lot more than that. And it seems like they've gotten that price.
There's some interesting stuff that's, and again, this is all down the road stuff, but Frank, is there any sense that Mario's going to hang around in any kind of a role? Because obviously symbolically he's, pretty, he has a pretty powerful role with that team anyway. And the rebirth of that team. And then as we trickle down to hockey, you got Ron Hextall, Brian Burke, They're probably heading towards a rebuild at some point, the post-Sid era, the post-Malkin era. This, it will kind of you kind of wonder where things might go on the hockey front as well.
Yeah, and my understanding is that Mario Lemieux is indeed remaining as a minority owner, that this is really just a Ron Burkle exit from the group. And so in this case, I think then turning to the hockey front, it does leave you wondering what, does the Fenway group try and make any sort of inroads in terms of how the team is run? Do they sit back and say, look, you're the hockey guys, go do what you need? They've certainly had much more of, when you look at the franchises they've operated, much more of an analytical focus, much more of a quantitative focus on how their franchises are run. And so, we're still kind of 9 months into the Ron Hextall, Brian Barrick era in Pittsburgh, and they've got a lot of work ahead of them. The most difficult work, the heavy lifting, hasn't been done yet. Malkin in the last year of his deal, Chris Letang in the last year of his deal, some other pretty significant players like a Brian Rust, and yet they've sort of soldiered on. Without Malkin to this point, he's on the ice, still targeting an early January return from this torn ACL. And so a lot of question marks in terms of when you ultimately rip that Band-Aid off. Is it this offseason? Do they try and find a way to keep Malkin? What does he look like when he gets back on the ice and playing? How impactful is he? How productive is he? So there's a lot to figure out on that front, and it'd be sure interesting with a new ownership group having ultimate control and authority.
Speaking of uncertainty in the front office, a lot of questions being lobbed towards the Vancouver Canucks, who may never win again. They've lost 5 straight. They're only ahead of the Kraken in the Pacific. The penalty kill is operating at 62%, which is very bad. How close are we to seeing some in-season changes, whether that's Jim Benning, whether that's Travis Green?
I would have thought that if we were going to see them, we would have seen them already. I thought it was interesting that Jim Benning didn't exactly give Travis Green a vote of confidence today when asked specifically about Green's job security. As for his own, Jim Benning said, I don't really think about those things. He's got enough to worry about. And you mentioned the penalty kill. That's one of 3 reasons why we're in this spot with the Canucks. And part of it is, your star players not being your star players. What happened to Elias Pettersson? Where did he go? This is a guy that when he burst onto the scene as a rookie, grabbed the league by the horns, grabbed the game by the horns. And he certainly looks like a shell of himself, timid, lacking confidence. The only time you notice him and his skill sometimes is when he has the puck on his stick on the power play. And the other part is a miscalculated bet with the right side of the Canucks defense. You needed a partner for Quinn Hughes. You needed to do better than what they've got. And when you look at that group with Tucker Poolman and Kyle Burrows and some of the other guys that they've plugged in, it hasn't worked out. A lot of people would have said when they made those moves that they didn't see it then, they don't see it now. And what you have is a penalty kill that, to your point, has been operating under 50% for the last number of games. The worst ever penalty kill in NHL history on record since 79-80 is 68% for the season. The Canucks are way down at the bottom at 60% now. They've got a lot of work to do, and the scary part is as the Vancouver market is out with pitchforks, they want a body on the tarmac.
Yes,
I just, what is, throwing one out there, well, how's that going to make this team better here and now, and how do you find a way back in to thinking about where you're heading next season and beyond? Because needing, if my math serves me correct, 42 wins over the last 64 games. I don't know that any team in the NHL is doing that to get into the playoffs for the Canucks, let alone this team with all the flaws that they have.
Well, it's always a bad sign when the owner goes on a road trip, right? Like it's not, they generally don't do it for the mini bar, right? It's always bad, but and I'm not sure there's a city in the NHL that does pitchforks better than Vancouver. It's a real good pitchfork town, but Frank, but having you can't, you're not going to allow Benning to fire Travis like that. Like, what's that going to accomplish at this point, right? Like it's. I'm
with you, but I'm at the same place with Jim Benning though. Like, what is firing him right now going to do for this team? You can't chart a new path forward right in the middle of this season. It's a long-term approach. So, are you getting through the season and then making a change? Like, what are you doing that's going to make the team better rather than just appeasing the masses? And to be fair, like there seemed to be some build-up heading into last night's game that was really kind of benign and calm. So it felt like a lot of screaming and yelling and not a lot else. And I don't know, maybe Vancouver just does that really well as well.
Yes, while holding pitchforks. Frank, appreciate the time. Talk again soon.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Frank 4e0eb, president of hockey content at Daily Faceoff. Yeah, they're freaking out in Vancouver.
Oh, they have some great, like, again, it's worth talking to Berkey about that. But the feeding frenzies in Vancouver are, like we've seen them here. You see, obviously in Montreal, there's some stuff going on now. Just a little bit of stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a certain kind of tenor to things in Vancouver that's different than anywhere else. And but Frank's right. Look, you fire a general manager in the middle of the season. It does, unless a great general manager is unemployed right now and waiting to be hired, and even then he's going to general manage you through the season.
Well, maybe he's got the secret. He's got the incredible trade mid-season that's going to totally flip your franchise on its head.
Yes, that's possible, but it's hard to general manage your way out of slumps, right? It just is.
Yes.
So that's the problem. But someone is going to demand a sacrifice here, and how can you let Jim Benning fire a coach at this stage?
You can't. Here's what it feels like, though, because I watched the game. I watched the reaction of the fans after the game who were chanting. It's one thing to chant about, fire Jim Benning, fire Travis Green. They were saying, sell the team to the Aquilinis. They were chanting, sell the team.
Oh, my.
If you're an owner and, you're not in it for the money, although you're probably in it for the money a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's a passion play, and you're becoming the target. No, that's not good. No, you got at that point, bodies do have to fly overboard.
You push someone in front of you and say it's his fault. Get rid of him. Yeah. Well, although it's funny, they can't actually force you to sell the team. It's funny that way.
Yeah, it is.
But Frank made a great point. Like, just to start on the Elias Pettersson part of it, right? Like, it's unbelievable. He's a ghost.
Yeah. And the guy who got his contract, and that was a big discussion in the offseason. But they have players. That's the thing. Quinn Hughes.
A lot of people had him kind of as dark horse, good team this year, right? There was a lot of the last year was wrecked by the COVID stuff and everything, but this year there were some wise guys saying watch them. Well, we've been watching them.
Yeah, I'd rather not, but we've watched them. They've been bad. All right, when we come back, we will talk to Hazel May, who was down at today's media availability for the Toronto Blue Jays, Ross Atkins and Jose Barrios. Also, we have the NL MVP award announced. Bryce Harper won that, which is perhaps not a surprise between him and Juan Soto. There's a conversation to be had about Bryce Harper and this kid who was on the cover of Sports Illustrated at like 16. Like, he basically did the LeBron James thing where, that type of pressure to live up to it, maybe exceed it. In LeBron James' case, he did.
Yes, he did.
But this is the second MVP award that Bryce Harper has won, not to mention he also won the Rookie of the Year award. He's been an incredible signing for the Philadelphia Phillies, so maybe we'll get to that. Also, talk about the Pats-Falcons Thursday nighter rematch, 28-3 tonight. But Hazel May next as the Fan Drive Time continues. Ben Ennis, Stephen Brunt, Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Fan Drive Time, Sportsnet 590 The Fan, Ben Ennis and Stephen Brunt. And I saw Hazel May in person.
Real live, honest to God press conference with real live press.
She was there.
It's so great.
It was awesome. It's the simple things, right, Hazel?
Absolutely. It was honestly the first time since COVID hit that we were allowed to be at Rogers Center in that interview room for an in-house press conference. And it was great. It was really fantastic not to be doing something like that, a big day for the franchise over Zoom. So we were thrilled.
Yeah, it was thrilling to see, honestly, and thrilling for Blue Jays fans to know that Jose Barrios is around for at least the next 5 years and potentially 7, but potentially beyond that. Maybe he'll retire here, in 15 years or something. But Stephen and I, we talked about it yesterday. We talked about it today to start the show as well, that this is, it's $131 million. Nothing to sneeze at, but maybe less than what he could have gotten if he just waited it out for a year, so that it had to go beyond just the money for him. And he basically said as much today.
Yeah, it's interesting because Ross Atkins, who I spoke to after the press conference, said that they started reaching out to Jose maybe 48 hours after the regular season ended and asked Berrios if it was okay if he reached out to his representatives about a possible extension. And that's how things kind of started rolling. Excuse me. And then Jose relayed the story that when the team returned to Rogers Center in July, he and his wife took the time to really go out into the city. We didn't know this, but apparently he's a big foodie, so he loves to go eat out at restaurants. He and his wife went and tried out a host of restaurants in Toronto. He loved it. He loved the people. He kept on saying how wonderful it was to see so much diversity in the city. He didn't bring his kids this summer because of COVID, but they had spent some time in the city as a family, and he said his kids just loved it. In fact, his youngest son asked when his dad was going to start to pitch because he wanted to be in the stadium with all the fans to watch him as a Toronto Blue Jay. So he did say that was a big reason why he wanted to stay with the Blue Jays long term. He appreciated the way negotiations went with Ross Atkins in the front office. He was very transparent with how open the two sides were. And it was interesting because our colleague Shai Dovidi spoke with Jose's agent afterwards, and his agent said, to the Blue Jays' credit, and he used a football analogy, they began negotiations not out of their own end zone, but they started at midfield because they really wanted to get this done, and that's how negotiations began, from midfield until they got to the end zone to get this done. So, yes, you're right, $131 million is a lot of reasons why you would want to stay with the organization. But he was very genuine in his comments, saying that he loved his teammates. He loved the way he was treated. He loved being able to feel safe in the city. And look, Toronto is a big city, and Toronto has big city problems. But in his eyes, he was very comfortable in having his family live in the city of Toronto. And, you know, if these guys were going on road trips, he felt comfortable and he felt that his family would be safe when he wasn't around.
You know, Hazel, it's like, I know, you know, anybody who signs with a team, they always come and say nice things about the team and the city because they just signed with them. But, you know, and sometimes it's, you know, I would, you always kind of, well, take that with a grain of salt because, of course, he's going to say that and he got paid the most. But, you know, if you look at the entire history of especially with the Blue Jays and free agents, right? They've always had to go to market and then some. You know, like extra year for Russell Martin, extra year for Ryu. Springer was like an extra $25 million, I think, over what the Mets were. Like this is a guy who did not have to sign. No. Could have just played out the year.
And left money on the table.
And he probably left money on the table. So I kind of have to take what he said as gospel to a degree. You have to believe it.
He was very genuine. And listen, a year ago, he talked about that rare opportunity. He called it a dream for many MLB players to test free agency. And in the short window, I mean, in that 2 months where he was here in Toronto, the organization left such an impression on him. I asked Ross Atkins, you know, was there, you know, when did you think this was going to be doable, extending him? And he talked about hearing from the support staff that Jose was starting to ask specific questions about the support staff, specific questions about the resources that were available to the players. Started, you know, asking about the city. It was questions that were really specific that Ross kind of thought to himself, this guy is invested in knowing what this organization is all about, what the city, what the country is all about. And listen, he's got Luis Rivera and Charlie Montoyo, fellow Puerto Ricans, to kind of give him some insight. And it certainly helps that he's got a lot of Latin players there that he feels comfortable with. It feels like a family to him. It feels like home to him, that he was able to really look at this organization from a different lens. And Ross said he watched him walk off the mound in one of his tremendous starts at Rogers Center, and when he tipped his cap to the fans, Ross called it an emotional moment for him, but that was the time where he felt like, hey, there's some real affinity here. He loves the atmosphere. He's got he's got some love for the fans, and that was the moment he thought he would be open. He suspected that he started liking life as a Toronto Blue Jay, and that, he may be open to signing here long term.
Well, it's a credit to the organization. So typically, because that's what they, that they've said this is what the kind of culture and situation they wanted that's to make players want to be here. So they in his case, they've done it. The other, I was going to ask you, Hazel, because you've been around the team and I have for a long time. It's like there's a lot of guys who played here. Some guys played here for years who didn't ever get that invested in the city, right? They and I was saying to Ben, like, a lot of them never got north of King Street, right? Like so it's not it's not that, like we all kind of look and say, well, wouldn't they want to live in this great, diverse, world-class city with all of the options you have to do all kinds of things? A lot of ball players go condo to ballpark to condo to airport, and that's kind of it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And they don't, I guess there's that preconceived, ideas of what living outside of the United States would be. And Stephen, and Ben, you've heard players, Mark Burley is a prime example, who, wasn't thrilled to be a Toronto Blue Jay, but now can't stop talking about how great it was to be a Toronto Blue Jay and to be a part of the city and the community and to have a whole country behind him. JP Arancibia, we had a conversation where, he said you didn't know how good you had it as a player with the Blue Jays until you left and saw how you were treated outside of the organization. And tip of the cap to, Shannon Curley, who is right in there with, helping with the families and the kids and the wives to get acclimated. And there's a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't know about, that we only hear about. And when I talk about support system and support staff for the players, these guys, while they're out on the field, it's the supporting cast of the Blue Jays organization that are making sure their families have accommodations. Their families know, if they want to put their kids to summer school, where the best places are, where they should go to eat, and just really have them enjoy the best of what the city offers. And I've been told by more than one player that Shannon and her team behind the scenes in dealing with the families is a huge, huge plus. I remember a conversation I had with Marco Estrada, who told me that when he left on road trips, he felt so safe and secure to have his young children and his wife behind if they weren't going to join him on the road trip. He had no worries that they were back in Toronto. All the wives would get together. All the kids would get together. He never felt, that their security was in jeopardy. And I think a lot of fans look at term and look at money. Of course you'll be happy with $100 million. But these guys think of stuff beyond that. And yes, the term and the money is great. Jose can retire his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, his great-great-grandchildren. But when you listen to him today at that press conference, he was so genuine in his, really his joy of being part of the community. And he wants to do everything in his power to help the organization, including now that they've signed this extension early in the off season. Ross hopes that now they can have Jose go out there sell the team and market the team and talk to people about, listen, I've only been there for 2 months, but in the 2 months I've been there, this is what I experienced, and this is why I signed here long term. So he's going to be a guy that's going to be picking up the phone and helping in the recruiting. And Stephen, that for years the front office of the Blue Jays would have to go to big name free agents. Now, what Ross is telling us is they're in a really good position where, thanks to Marcus Semien, thanks to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Teoscar Hernandez, and the attention this team has gotten in the joy that they play the game with their competitiveness. Like, it's a cool place to play. And now they're hearing from agents instead of them going to agents. More times than not, they're hearing from agents calling them and asking, what opportunities are there for their clients. So that is a huge change, Stephen. You know this. Guys have to, as you mentioned, add the extra year, add the extra $10 or $20 million just to get guys to even think about playing north of the border.
Yeah, it's a different era. Last one, Hazel. What do we think of the jacket? The white jacket with the black checks for Jose Barrios. It was kind of Miami Vice.
I liked it. I'm not sure he should have kept it on when Ross Atkins was trying to put the jersey on him. Note, take off the sport jacket and then put the jersey on, because you could tell he was getting the, this might be a little tight with the sport jacket on. But, I thought it was great. I love guys like, you remember Orlando Hudson, who always kind of dressed to the nines, so it was outside the box with what he was wearing. I thought it was fantastic. Good choice.
When are we going to see some men's designs on hazelmaydesign.com?
Oh, my God. Only if Stephen Brunt becomes my model.
Well, I think you've got a model in-house, don't you? He's a handsome man.
Just so you know, the handsome man is in the mountains right now,
yes,
listening on a transistor radio. So he's listening to us as we speak, I promise you.
Has he had success? I'm not going to discuss specifically what he's doing, but has he had success,
No.
Hazel?
Roasting marshmallows? Yes, he has.
Good. The marshmallows have landed. Excellent. Good.
Yes.
I'm happy about that.
You know he loves you, and he'll send you some photos of the roasted marshmallows.
I know he will. I love him to death, so I look forward to it.
Oh, thanks, Hazel. See ya.
You guys are the best. Talk to you soon. Bye.
See you,
Bye, Hazel May. Here's the thing about when you roast those marshmallows. Like, you don't want to know how you get your marshmallows at home. I'm telling you, they're roasted way worse than if you roast them yourself.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
So don't look down on the self-roasters. Anywho, all right. We appreciate Hazel May. We're awaiting the announcement of the American League MVP, and it'll be Shohei Ohtani, and he's nobody has like a very interesting backdrop. Vlad is with his child and a significant other, it looks
Yes.
like. Marcus Semien's up there, and those guys, I think they know what they're in for.
It's thanks for showing up.
Oh,
Thanks for
Ohtani, unanimous. It is now official, and he looks ecstatic.
So let's see. Well, Vladdy was second on 29 of 30 ballots.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
I have no qualms with that. People got all upset because Robbie Ray was not a unanimous American League Cy Young Award winner. I thought all the numbers did point to him, but you could really squint, I guess, if you wanted to, and make a case for Garrett Cole. There was a couple. I think he actually had him in Fangraph's WAR statistics. So if that's the thing that you're going off of, then you give it to him. I think the innings thing is a massive deal for Robbie Ray. So I don't have a problem with, like I said, I thought the difference between Semien and Vlad was much closer than Vlad to Shohei. But Shohei Ohtani is, unsurprisingly, the 2021 American League MVP. Bryce Harper, the 2021 National League MVP, his second MVP award. And yeah, he was worth all the hype.
So award season is now complete.
That's it.
That's it. Owners' meetings are complete today, right? Because Manfred spoke, so that must be the end of the owners' meetings.
Yeah. So now we just sit back and wait for
an arbitrary deadline at midnight on December 1st.
And in the meantime, we can watch a football game tonight.
Yes.
In Atlanta at the Mercedes-Benz Dome, I think, or Mercedes-Benz Arena, I think it's called. Who knows? And frankly, who cares? The New England Patriots in Atlanta to play the Falcons on Thursday Night Football, their first matchup since 28-3 in the Super Bowl. And who would have thunk that a half decade later that the Falcons would still have the MVP of that season, Matt Ryan, behind the helm, and the Patriots wouldn't have Tom Brady, and that you would 100 times out of 100 rather be the New England Patriots in 2021 than the Atlanta Falcons.
It's interesting, isn't it, how this season has progressed? Remember the conversations we were having at the beginning of the year with, about Bill Belichick and maybe losing his fastball, even last year, obviously, with Brady going to the Super Bowl, and then the whole Cam Newton thing, and is Cam Newton going to play? Is he going to be on the team, et cetera, et cetera? I'll tell you, today's fearless prediction, but it's not even that. The New England Patriots are going to win they're going to win a playoff game.
Yeah, this year.
They're going to win a playoff game this year, yes.
Here's the thing. I wouldn't rule them out of winning the AFC. And that's been the story of this NFL season, is how flattened the talent base has been.
Yeah.
That there's really, like, this is what you get in your salary cap sport. I hope you like it. And Amy Trask says this was the goal. The NFL every single season would love it to be like this. And in fact, it's the first time in NFL history there are 13 teams with either 4 or 5 wins through week 10. Every NFL team has at least 2 losses. And over the last 2 weeks, 8 teams that entered a game, a division leader, were upset. So it's just throw everybody into a hat and shake the hat up and throw it out, and you can get a different winner week to week. I think the teams, some of the teams that we thought would be at the top of the pile coming in are going to emerge, and it feels like the Chiefs have figured it out. But that, I guess there's some people, if you don't play in a market that has one of those teams, you're happy with this. But I got to say, this is a little much for me. I need your measuring stick franchises where you beat that team, you go into Arrowhead and you beat the Chiefs. That's something. And it felt like that early in the season when we thought the Chiefs were the Chiefs.
Now everybody beats them.
Now everybody beats them. The Bills go into an entire offseason with one thing on their mind, and that's how do we beat the Kansas City Chiefs in an AFC championship game. They do that. It feels like their Super Bowl, and now it means nothing.
Well, and I was in the wilds of Mexico when the Bills lost 9-6 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So
right.
I missed that one. It was an interesting score to pop up on your phone, though, when you're not the Tennessee Titans minus Derrick Henry, best team in the AFC right now. I don't know. Yeah. But I'll tell you something. The Patriots, back to them tonight, they look like a Belichick team, don't they? Defensively, they've really, really come together. They're running the ball. The quarterback is not Tom Brady, but he's getting it done, right? And he's making really good decisions. They still don't have the world's greatest receiving core, but I think it's better than some of the ones Tom Brady had. But it's mostly the way they're playing defensively right now. And again, their ability to grind it out. They look at like a team to me that on a crappy day in Foxborough, you don't want to play them. On a bad field in Foxborough in January, they're gonna be a nightmare for anybody right now.
Yeah,
like you're right. They could win the AFC, but I'm not going to go that far.
They still have 2 games against the Bills.
Those
remaining.
will be very, very interesting football games.
Yeah, and okay, so Mac Jones, he's not the flashiest guy in the world, but I mean, okay, Tom Brady had the 1 year with Randy Moss where that was a pretty flashy offense. For the most part, that's a team that just takes what the defense presents to them. And he was like 8 of 9 on 3rd down last week against the Cleveland Browns. If you're one of those teams that selected a quarterback ahead of Mac Jones in the first round, and there were 4 of them, it's Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. And I know Justin Fields has shown a few things, and it's year 1 of Trevor Lawrence. He hasn't really shown all that much. Zach Wilson, you're freaking out if you're a Jets fan, but yes. I don't know what quarterback is supposed to do something there. And Trey Lance basically hasn't played. Remember that was also a storyline going into the draft too, was that the Niners make this move to get up to 3, and it's maybe Mac Jones, and what an insane idea that would be. And then maybe Kyle Shanahan was afraid of the reaction he got and said, yeah, no, it was Trey Lance all along. Mm-hmm. I wonder if there's a wish to have a redo on that one.
Although they looked okay with that other guy playing quarterback last week, right? So I don't, but everything, like was it Belichick or was it Brady? Mm-hmm. I think we haven't fully answered that question yet.
No.
Like I know last year people thought, wow, it's conclusive now. Just let's wait.
Yeah, you want to talk about a quick turnaround and a quick rebuild? The Blue Jays had one. Maple Leafs had one. The Patriots appear to have had one because they were not so great without Brady, but get a quarterback and all of a sudden you're back in the discussion to win a conference. Unbelievable turnaround for Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. All right, we'll be back tomorrow. This has been The Fan Drive Time. Sportsnet 590 The Fan.